It was a clear, crisp Colorado morning when my quiet routine was shattered by the sight of 3 squad cars creeping up the gravel driveway like they were rolling up on some kind of fugitive manhunt. There I stood on my front porch, a half-eaten strawberry Pop-Tart in one hand, a bucket of goat feed in the other, boots on my feet, boxers my only other clothing, blinking into the chaos of blue lights and dust clouds while chickens scattered like it was a SWAT raid. At the head of this parade sat Marlene Davis, the self-crowned queen of the HOA from the gated neighborhood next door. She was perched proudly in the passenger seat of one of the cruisers, flailing her arms like she was directing air traffic, shouting, "Officers! There he is. That's him. He's trespassing. He's the aggressor." The irony cut deep. My family had owned this land for 70 years, long before the HOA existed, long before Marlene's neatly trimmed beige fences and her infinity pools. It hadn't started with cop cars and shouting. It started 6 months back when the Maple Hollow Estates HOA, the same HOA that crowned Marlene Queen, decided my old red barn was an eyesore from the vantage point of their yoga deck. Claimed it clashed with the neighborhood's aesthetic vision. First came the passive-aggressive flyers in my mailbox. Then came Marlene herself, dressed in pink golf attire, iced coffee in one hand, a laminated set of HOA regulations in the other, asking if I'd consider selling them my land so they could expand their buffer zone. I told her the only buffer I needed was one that kept her neurotic terrier off my driveway. But Marlene doesn't hear no. She's the type who reports your Halloween decorations if they're still up on November 1st. When I stood my ground, she upped the ante. Suddenly my 3 goats, my tractor, my rooster who takes his job as nature's alarm clock a little too seriously were unauthorized livestock and non-compliant structures. The wild part? I wasn't even in their HOA. Undeterred, they pulled out a zoning map from 1994, arguing that my parcel technically fell into their sphere of influence. So, when those squad cars showed up, Marlene at the helm, screaming about armed resistance, it shouldn't have surprised me, but it still felt like stepping into someone else's fever dream. I raised my Pop-Tart like Exhibit A. Strawberry, I offered, and one of the deputies choked back a laugh. The other 2 looked like they regretted showing up at all. That's about when the real muscle of the story arrived. Gravel crunched behind me. My wife, Allison, rolled up the drive in our beat-up pickup. She didn't step out like a normal person, she moved like a panther. She had her tactical backpack slung over one shoulder, sweat glinting on her brow from an early morning run, her eyes sharp and calm, the kind of calm you only learn after 12 years as a Navy SEAL medic. She stood there on the steps, her arms crossed. "Warrants?" she asked the deputies, flat as a challenge. The lead deputy blinked like she'd slapped him. Marlene stammered, trying to shove a crumpled HOA complaint toward Allison. This is a clear violation. You're resisting HOA authority." Allison didn't even flinch. She scanned the papers, hummed like she was reading a bad recipe, then tilted her head. "This zoning overlay is void. The Agricultural Use Protection Act superseded this map 15 years ago. Proceed and you'll be violating state law." The deputy's discomfort was visible. Marlene's confidence wilted like a garden in a drought. "Feed the goats yet?" Allison asked me casually. I nodded, still holding my Pop-Tart. "Can I finish my breakfast now?" "Be my guest," she replied. Marlene was sputtering about voting majorities and legal standing, but Allison ignored her and walked back into the house without breaking stride. It turned into a bizarre little standoff. Marlene whipped out her phone and started live streaming, shouting about illegal occupation and military intimidation, but the irony turned into pure comedy when she tripped over her own HOA golf cart trying to get the best angle. The video went viral before noon. The top comment read, "Marlene versus Navy SEAL wife. HOA tyrant loses battle to common sense and goat feed." When the cops finally backed off, promising to conduct a county review, Marlene cut her stream, but the damage was already done. She had humiliated herself online, and the internet doesn't forget. Allison and I sat on the porch that evening, sweet teas in hand. She looked over at me, smiled faintly. "That was phase 1, she said. "They'll try again. They always do." I sighed. "Can we avoid burning the place down?" She shrugged. "Depends. You still got that drone from your birthday." I nodded. She grinned. "Good. We're going to need it. By the time the HOA posted their next round of accusations on the neighborhood Facebook group, Allison was already 5 moves ahead. She spread out the deeds, zoning maps, and a folder labeled Strategic Containment Options across the kitchen table like she was planning a battlefield operation. "It's going to get louder," she muttered. The next morning, Allison emailed the county zoning board, the state agriculture commission, and our local senator. Attached were drone photos and GPS-tagged footage of Marlene herself trespassing on our land, pacing back and forth with a measuring tape, muttering like a colonial surveyor lost in time. Another file showed the HOA president, Greg Simmons, plotting with a private surveyor pointing toward our barn. Allison included timestamps, boundary data, and federal agricultural protections in the email. It was a digital sledgehammer. Within days, we posted tactical training area, restricted access signs along the property line. Allison installed trail cams at every entry point. Our retired military K-9, Duke, patrolled the perimeter, silent and watchful. Marlene noticed. She rolled up one afternoon in her golf cart, 2 of her committee cronies trailing behind. They barked about visual obstructions and unauthorized signage. Allison, boots planted firmly in the gravel, calmly replied, "This isn't HOA land. It's state-protected agricultural property. Step foot here again and I'll file a federal cease and desist." One of the cronies bailed immediately. The other looked unsure. "You can't do that," Marlene snapped. "I already did," Allison answered without blinking. That night, Marlene posted another sob story video online, calling us militarized extremists and accusing us of creating a hostile living environment. The video backfired spectacularly. Locals mocked her, turned her complaints into memes, and shared clips of the original viral video. Allison didn't engage. She kept documenting everything. Every post, every trespass, every threat. She built the case like she was stacking bricks. 3 days later, a county inspection crew rolled up, Marlene tagging along like she was their supervisor. Allison met them at the gate with a binder thicker than a phone book, full of permits, certifications, and federal protections. "Very thorough," the lead inspector commented. Marlene tried waving her own stack of papers, but the inspector shut her down fast. "Ma'am, this isn't your jurisdiction. Interfere again and we'll report it as obstruction." Marlene's face turned as red as my barn. But she still wasn't done. The next week, we woke up to the sound of heavy machinery. Outside, a construction crew wearing HOA vests was drilling posts and laying concrete across the entrance to our private drive. Marlene sat nearby, smug in a lawn chair, sipping orange juice. Allison didn't miss a beat. She walked straight up to the foreman, handed him a cease and desist order, then turned to Marlene. "Did you invent an enforcement agency, Marlene? Because this paperwork you handed over? Not real. That's 5 felonies. Congratulations." The foreman, sensing lawsuits in the air, packed up the crew and left within minutes. Later that night, motion sensors caught Marlene and one of her lackeys sneaking near the barn, snapping pictures in the dark. Allison stepped into the beam of her flashlight. "Trespassing again, Marlene?" Marlene stammered, "Public evidence gathering." Allison hit record on her phone. "Get off my land. You're done." By noon the next day, the sheriff's office had opened an official investigation into the HOA's tactics. Whistleblower emails leaked, revealing the HOA's plan to forcibly annex our property and resell it for profit. Allison called a press conference at the barn, calmly presenting our documentation. The video went viral. Even veterans groups shared it, captioning the clip, "Never pick a fight with a SEAL's wife." The HOA board collapsed within weeks. Members resigned. Their accounts vanished. A state audit discovered their charter had expired 2 decades ago. Their bylaws were void. Marlene? She tried one last desperate movie, a unity rally, in her backyard, complete with fake candles and speeches about community integrity. 5 people showed up. Someone leaked footage of the sad event. Satire websites had a field day. Allison filed to dissolve the HOA formally, and the county approved it. Maple Hollow Estates HOA was officially dead. Weeks later, Marlene slinked back one early morning, trench coat and measuring tape in hand. Allison caught her on camera. "You do realize your HOA doesn't exist anymore, right?" she asked, voice even. Deputy Ramirez rolled up minutes later. "Marlene, we've talked about this. Next time it's criminal charges." She hasn't come back since. The farm is quiet again. Allison hosted a veterans retreat here not long after, painting a mural along the barn wall. The goats are happy. The chickens are loud. Peace has returned. Over sweet tea on the porch one evening, I joked, "So, should we start our own HOA?" Allison smiled. "Sure. But the motto's gonna be, mess around, find out." We toasted to that, the sun setting behind the pines, lighting the place we fought for and won, piece by piece, with grit, patience, and a binder thicker than a phone book.